Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time on this Sunday night. You made it. It's the end of the 2023 regular season. Titans wrapping it up on a positive note today at Nissan Stadium. Is it Derrick Henry's last game there? I don't know. But if it is, it was a send-off that Titans fans are going to remember forever and something that we are going to talk about here tonight. Very happy to have you guys wherever you're spending your time with us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch. We have a lot to get into, which is crazy because this team isn't going anywhere, right? It's done. A lot of times when you go through these football seasons, the way that this stuff can end is so abrupt and so sudden, and maybe it's expected, maybe it's not expected, but you've known that your season is over today for, 3 weeks, basically, since right before Christmas. And to have it come to an end like this, I don't want to say that it's satisfying, but they're in a season that did not have a lot of satisfaction. Today had to feel at least somewhat satisfying to Titans fans, no matter what you were rooting for, even if you were rooting against them for the better draft pick. So we'll talk about what could be and is probably the end of an era. We'll get your thoughts on the 2023 season that was. Do a little Sunday fun day before we wrap up the broadcast, and that's the way that this is going to go tonight. Before we get started, I need you guys to share this program around on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch, wherever you're spending time with us. We would be grateful if you shared the broadcast. If you're on Twitter, like I am right now, you can retweet the show in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. If you're on Facebook Live, you can share. You can share now to public. I'll do that on my Facebook page. You can do that as well on yours. That's in the bottom left. And if you're on YouTube or on Twitch, subscribe to the channel, like the video if you're so inclined. Tell a friend to do the same if you've done both of those things. We'd be happy if you would, and we will certainly enjoy over the course of the next couple of minutes, next 30 to 45 to maybe an hour. We'll see how long we go. It's the end of the season. There is no time is a flat circle when the season is officially over, and that is kind of the way that I feel about it here tonight. Chosen says, Buck, do you really think King Henry won't come back? Doesn't it make the most sense for him to retire a Titan for his Hall of Fame career if he wants to? Well, no, that's not how football works. So it's whatever makes the most sense for the football team, and that the emotional part of it shouldn't matter at all. That it does for you guys, I get it. And today was a very emotional day for him, for you guys, for a lot of people who have played with him over the course of years. He had a lot of people in the stands today who were there to support him. But no, I mean, if it doesn't make sense from a football perspective, then no, it doesn't make sense for him to retire as a Titan. There's very few players who get to play their entire career in one spot. But either way, let's get into it. Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time from the Zen Sports Studios. I'm your host, Buck Rising. I'm proud, as always, to be presented to you by the great people at Zen Sports. Promo code ATOZTN is how you get involved. Up to $1,000 on your no danger first wager in the Zen Sports app. The law offices of Amanda J. Gentry, wherever justice demands. Amanda J. and her team are there to serve it up for you. Go to AmandaJGentry.com for more information. And True Math Fitness in the Gulch, a new way to work out, the best way to work out for the best version of you. Go to TrueMathFitness.com for your first workout free. So it was a weird vibe. I mean, this was something that we knew was coming. And like I said, the Tannehill, Derrick Henry, end of an era stuff, last ride vibes, that was all over the place. Matthew Johnson says, what got into the offensive line today? Blocking like I've never seen all season. That's what I'm saying. Like, today was different, right? And I think there's a certain part of you, if you're a Titans fan, that's allowed to be pissed about that. Like, why did today make a difference? Could a team like that have played this way all year long and, potentially won a couple more divisional games until waiting to the last game of the regular season to win a divisional game? What's the call? What's the word, the phrase that I'm looking for? Revisionist history can be done everywhere, especially with what's happening. Yusuf on YouTube says Vrabel is going to get to sleep this weekend. I don't know, man. His name is all over the lips and the Twitter feeds of NFL insiders everywhere. So I don't think Mike Vrabel's doing much sleeping. because I don't think that, I think we're going to be talking a lot more about Mike Vrabel this week And I was on here last week talking about 99.999999999999999% sure that Mike Vrabel is going to be the head coach of the Tennessee Titans in 2024. I still do feel more than not that Mike Vrabel is going to be the head coach, but this weekend was kind of nuts, and there's going to be a lot of stuff that we have to suss through, and meetings that are going to be had this week about his future that I think are fascinating. Wesley Bates says, "Seabuck, I told you Vrabel is not safe either." Well, listen, Wesley, when you told me, those words didn't matter. It's not like you telling me made that so. The circumstances of the last 48 hours in the NFL news cycle have made that so. So when last we met, it's been at least 48 hours. So anything said last week on the primetime show is not applicable to this weekend's news cycle, as we are going to work through today. This stuff is super fluid, and an owner can change his, or in this case, her, mind at any given point. What that's going to look like over the course of the next 48 hours is going to be a fascination, but we don't have to get there yet. We're going to focus on the game. So we'll keep it moving on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch. I'll ask you this question. Was today Derrick Henry's last day as a Tennessee Titan? We will discuss it at length together in the comment section. It's your Two Rivers Ford take. As always, it is presented by Two Rivers Ford, quality American-made Ford vehicles and award-winning customer service. Go to Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet. They will put you in position to succeed. The car buying process is always easy with the fine folks at Two Rivers Ford. So, was today's Derrick Henry's last day as a Tennessee Titan? Yes, says BF. More likely than not, says Yusuf. Will Arthur be out in the ranks tomorrow, says Royal Wright. Yeah, I mean, Arthur Smith got embarrassed today. And was very, very upset about what happened with the Saints and everything like that. I don't know if Art's going to be out there, but I don't want to speak erroneously because I don't know as much about Art's situation as I do about Vrabel's, for example. And even Vrabel's situation seems to be changing, seems to be much more fluid today than it was, say, a week ago after they lost in Houston to the Texans. Henry leaving is the start of my villain story, says Stokely. Fulcrum says calling zone runs is what happened. No, their offense is predicated off zone runs. It's not like zone runs are something that's new to the Titans offense. What is Tannehill's new home going to be? I don't care about that right now. We're talking about Henry. Sure seemed like his last game, says Cody in the comment section. Derek Wright says, will Derek come back? I don't know. I'm asking you that. We're talking about it right now. Kawan, hopefully I pronounced that correctly, says the Kang will be back in Tennessee next year. Well, listen, if you're not following along on A to Z Sports social channels and on mine, because I'm behind the scenes every day every day during the season, and we'll have a lot more behind the scenes stuff like Senior Bowl's coming up, Combine's coming up, draft. You guys will be right alongside me when we are at the facility for this draft, which is going to be very important because they're locked in right now to the 7th overall selection in this year's upcoming NFL draft. But for Derrick, I was behind the scenes for all of it today, right? And everything that I saw, which our buddy Jake Evans, who's helping me out with Robert on making his way back from Baltimore, where he went to watch his Ravens take an L. Jake was good enough to put all of that into video form for me. And the way that the way that all of it went down made it seem like this was going to be the end for Derrick Henry. And I'm going to share that video here with you guys here in just a second. From the start, I mean, all week, right? Not only because he turned 30 on Thursday and he was talking about that and was very reflective. If you'll hang with me for just a second, this video is probably going to pop up while it gets uploaded into the correct part of the system because it ended up getting dropped in the wrong spot. So we will do that for you guys. And so everything from Derrick turning 30 this week. Yeah, sure enough, I told you it was going to pop up while I was trying to do this. All the vibes, right? Expiring contract. This is the last season or the last week of the regular season. This is a home game. It's Derrick Henry. It's Ryan Tannehill starting for Will Levis because Will Levis's injury caused him to be unavailable for this week. And so everything behind the scenes felt like, all right, a little bit of an obituary. We did it on the radio show this week. If we don't get to talk about Derrick Henry as a Titan next year, if this in fact is the end, then wouldn't it be a shame if we didn't have a moment to remember all the great moments that he provided to us over the course of the last 8 years? And you'll hear his send off to Titans fans. That he said might have been taken a little bit out of context, but it's tough to take what he said out of context, and we'll let you guys decide about that later on. But yeah, everything that went down with Derrick Henry today felt like the end, and so I wanted to make sure, and Austin and Zach and all the A to Z folks wanted to make sure that we were able to document it as much as humanly possible from as many different angles as humanly possible, and so I did a lot of things differently today than I would. I basically just followed Derrick around during pre and post game availabilities, and Derrick Henry was the focal, and Tannehill to an extent too, but Derrick Henry was the focal point of the day. So was it Derrick Henry's last day as a Titan? Well, I'm going to answer that question for you. What I think, just an educated guess here in just a second, right after I remind you that the Primetime Show is presented by TrueMath Fitness in the Gulch. Go to TrueMathFitness.com for your first workout free as a Middle Tennessee resident. No workout ever recycled or repeated. TrueMath Fitness puts you above and beyond in position to succeed. Worth Campbell, huge Titans fan, suite holder at Nissan Stadium. I know he and his son were in attendance to watch Derrick Henry's final ride, potentially earlier today. It doesn't have to be the final ride for your workout plan. Keep your New Year's resolution in check. Go to TrueMathFitness.com for your first workout free. So I'm going to give you guys a little behind the scenes stuff. So this is some stuff from the pregame tunnel. This is some stuff of Derrick Henry leaving the field afterwards, and then Derrick Henry in the locker room with us or in the media interview room with us after the game.
Perfect way to go out with a win and 153 yards?
No, I was just saying in the moment, though. It's been a great 8 years. I've grown. A lot has happened through these 8 years. Turned 30 in year 8, and had my daughter through these 8 years, and I've just grown as a person and a player. Had some great teammates, great coaches. Fans been there through it all. So it was just just a thank you to them. I know how I worded it probably got brought out with question a little bit. It was a thank you speech just showing up to the fans.
Was that a spur of the moment deal? Did you thought about doing that, and how do you think it went off?
Well, they just told me after the game they want me to say something one more time. So it was just from the heart and off the top, kind of freestyle a little bit. Hope I did good. Hope y'all liked it.
So that's Derrick Henry, pre-game, post-game, and then post-game. Do we think it's his last game in Tennessee today? Nate on YouTube says, so fitting that it all started playing Jacksonville with a 99-yarder, and it ends playing Jacksonville having a game like that storybook. Yeah, he had over 150 yards rushing. It's his best statistical output of the day. He averaged 8.1 yards per carry. Again, behind that offensive line, he was a man on a mission. You could tell that there was just a little something extra, and I don't like I said, I think that there's going to be some portion of Titans fans that are like, what the hell? Where was that all year long? And I don't think what he did today would have been sustainable over a 17-game series. He joked he had that 69-yard run today, nice, which also happened to be his longest run of the season. And he got caught. He didn't score. And he said, he was joking about it. He goes, I'm not getting any younger. I should have scored on that. I'm 30 now, and kind of laughed it off. But yeah, that's the reality of the situation, right? There's a lot of the vibes that are the same, and there's some stuff that obviously is not there anymore. Because Roy says we got to see him break one again. Right. It's been pretty long, a pretty long time since we've seen him do anything quite like that. And he just used to make the ridiculous seem so routine. Alex BN says, I'm going to put money on that he will ask for too much money, test the market, no one will pay his price tag, and then sign with the Titans on a team-friendly deal. Tennessee can draft a hammer to be a big back, says Jody. No, maybe, but like nobody's Derrick Henry. And Derrick Henry's still totally capable of being Derrick Henry, which was proven today. How much longer that lasts, right? And how much better the offensive line in front of him needs to be, whether that's here or elsewhere, is obviously a big deal. Cole Murphy, my good buddy, who I got to see today at the game, says, I hold out a little hope that they sign him. He comes back, but don't blame him if he chases a ring elsewhere. Well, that's what he said. He wanted to win a Super Bowl. Said, everybody wants to finish with the team that drafted them. He wants very badly to bring a Super Bowl here to Tennessee, but it may not be realistic. Hemby says that's a 300-yard game behind any other offensive line, which is just so crazy. Kyle Jones says, rumor has it that the King might go back home in Jacksonville and play for the Jags next year, face purple crying. Is what that says. Yeah, there's zero credibility to anything of that right now because Derrick Henry said himself, he's not even thinking about that. So literally anything that you can pull out of your ass about Derrick Henry and where he's going to land in the offseason, you're allowed to do, but there is nothing to substantiate that, Kyle. There is no credible reporting to that effect. That just seems to be something that shit is being made up in the chat and is being run with. But, if that's how you choose to spend your time, then you're entirely entitled to do so. I would just recommend that you don't get your news off, nothing wrong with Facebook because we obviously broadcast to Facebook, but, maybe do a little bit more discerning before you take the first thing that you see on the internet and run with it and bring it to the chat. So I think that, there's a lot of different elements to this today, right? And I think for Derrick, it is super complicated. He's playing a position that does not get rewarded for the more that they produce. In fact, they are held, they are dinged for how much they produce because it just means higher workload, higher usage, higher carries, more wear and tear. And Derrick Henry has been the anomaly, right? Derrick has already beaten the odds. Derrick has already gone above and beyond to show that he is not like any other running back in certainly in the modern day NFL. And he's like very few other running backs who have played in the league as a whole. Again, he broke another one of these records, Earl Campbell, today. He passed him for the most 100-yard games in franchise history. And, it's just a casual thing because that's what Derrick does. Every time we talked about it with Levis and with Tannehill this season and with a lot of their teammates, every time you hand it off to that dude, it was a little part of history. And wherever he goes, he's going to continue to build upon that. But here's the thing. We're gonna get into this right after I remind you that the Primetime Show is made possible by the law offices of Amanda J. Gentry. Wherever justice demands, Amanda J. and her team are there to see you through it. They have practiced in Tennessee family and criminal courts in 35 counties in the state of Tennessee. They mean what they say when they say wherever justice demands, they will fight for you to protect your constitutional rights. Go to AmandaJGentry.com for more information. Derrick Henry on an expiring contract, turning 30 years old and having the workload that he does. I don't think he's going to be signed by anywhere in the first wave of free agency. That's just and all this is educated guessing right now. There's going to be teams that are interested. He's going to have a market. I don't know what that market is going to look like. Just to kind of use a number as a jumping off point, Spottrack.com, and this is just, it's like a Zillow valuation or a Redfin valuation. It's just an estimate. Doesn't mean it's a hard and fast number. They've got him at 1 year, 4.3 being the market value for Derrick Henry. And I think that makes a lot of sense based on what somebody like Zeke Elliott got 1 year, 3 from the Patriots last year. Brandon Brown says $6 to $7 million. I don't think Derrick Henry is getting $6 to $7 million anywhere. I think that if he makes sense anywhere, it's here in Tennessee, and certainly Tennessee. I would be pissed if they spent $7 million on a running back when they have Tajay Spears. And, I don't know how Hassan, and not to say that Hassan Haskins and Tajay Spears are going to be just an easy replacement for Derrick Henry, but you need to win with value, and you've got $70-something million in cap space to work with. I don't want them spending a tenth of that on a 30-year-old running back, of course. So looking around at the league and saying, well, he's never been a free agent before. Remember, he was tagged the first time, which allowed them to kind of keep him under contract, keep everything settled while they work out a deal. Derrick says, give him what he wants. Yeah, that's not how this works. They're never going to do that. I think that when you talk about everything with the Titans and with Derrick Henry, with the running back market that they have, you have to look at this and say, well, he's already beaten the odds once. What are the odds that he's going to beat the odds again? And I think that he's going to continue to find ways to improve upon his statistical output. I think that he's going to continue to find ways to work himself further up in NFL history. But anything more than 1 year 5 is too rich for my blood, and I think going to be the case for a lot of NFL teams. Now, I think that dude is probably going to still be out there, as we get closer to training camp. I think that that's going to be a contender type of signing. I think Derrick's going to have more of a pick to kind of see how things play out, where the chips fall in free agency. I don't think he necessarily wants to sign early on in free agency because it's not like he's getting a 3-year deal from anybody at 30, playing the position that he does. So I think you kind of want to see where everybody else signs in free agency, how teams put themselves together in the draft, take the summer to not put extra wear and tear on your body. You don't have to go through training camp if you're Derrick Henry. And then look around and be like, all right, kind of like DeAndre Hopkins. What makes the most sense? Hop was late in the summer, right? And he was just right before training camp. I think maybe the week of training camp is when that deal went down, just to kind of go back through my memory banks here. But I think there's a lot of this that, while it's not necessarily advantageous to him, there are going to be a lot of things that allow him some options, even as the financials aren't going to be ideal. So do I think he's back? No, I don't think so. And that could change as we get closer, and maybe the market isn't what that bears itself out. But I think both parties are at a point where they know that it's time to go their separate ways. And I think I could make a case for Derrick Henry coming back pretty easily. I know I could make a case for Derrick Henry coming back pretty easily. It's just, there's so many more needs that they have, and that money is best spent elsewhere. And I know that, to say that they replaced Derrick Henry in 2021, it's not a small thing. Like Deontay Foreman had a really, really good run. Dontrell Hilliard had a really, really good run that year with that team. And there's still places where Derrick is super effective that those guys couldn't dream of, right? But if I had to bet, and I don't bet money on anything NFL related, just as a conflict of interest, but if I had to bet your money on whether he'd be back or not, I would, I don't think so. But we'll have a whole summer to talk about it. Cole Murphy says they're sitting on 100 million cap space next year. Well, it's not 100 mil. It's about 76 mil, but I get what you're saying. Situation can change pretty quick with that kind of money. They're not going to spend all the money, and they've got much more important places to spend the money than another running back contract. And by the way, like, he wants to win a Super Bowl. Like, he wants to win. I don't know that Tennessee is the best place for him to win a Super Bowl, especially, they can certainly jumpstart this thing in a big way next year, but I don't think any of us are going to sit around and argue that Tennessee would be the best place for him to go out and try and win a Super Bowl next year. Ross Biggie says Vrabel can't keep good players. Of course, that's bullshit, because Derrick Henry has been on this roster for 8 years. Jeff Simmons just resigned. Kevin Byard was here for a very, very long time until they decided to trade him away smartly, because Terrell Edmonds and Kevin Byard have the same number of interceptions since the Kevin Byard trade. So that's just nonsensical. They don't draft good players. The reason they don't keep their players is because the players that they're drafting aren't good. And Vrabel's not blameless in that entirely. He's supposed to be a part of that process, and I think he's going to be. Well, we'll see what plays itself out in the future. But I think that is, of course, total bullshit. William Jones says Vrabel just ran off Tart. Yeah, but okay, that's the one. I mean, you're gonna. Is there another example? Is T.R. Tart a superstar? No, T.R. Tart's a really good interior player, who I think unfairly got painted as a bigger pain in the ass than he actually was. But if that dude's being toxic in your locker room, or at least you feel that dude's being toxic in your locker room, then I don't think there's anything wrong with showing him the door. He did make the Titans pay for it. I'm not saying that you can ignore that, but okay, Vrabel ran off T.R. Tart. Well, where's the rest of the list? If Tart is the list, then I think that's fine. And Tart is not a great player. Tart's a Ben Jones always makes the joke with me, former Titans center Ben Jones, that they've always said that T.R. Tart is the best 2-down player in football. But that third down, you can get you can get a lot by Tier in that pretty good moment. If Arthur Smith gets fired, do you think the Titans will bring him back as OC? I have no idea. He's not fired yet. He's still the head coach in Atlanta. We'll have a whole offseason to talk about that. I don't really care about that today. But what I do care about is your thoughts, your final thoughts on the 2023 season. How would you define the 2023 season for the Titans? We'll talk about it together on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch right after I remind you that the Primetime Show is made possible by Zen Sports. Download the app, plug in the promo code ATOZTN, and get in on all the action. Up to $1,000 on your no danger first wager is what Zen Sports offers you, whether it's football coming to a close, but the playoffs are ahead of us, the national championship game tomorrow, of course, all the different things that you can bet on, all your favorite major sports available for you to wager on in the Zen Sports app. Terms and conditions do apply. Gambling problem, call the Tennessee Red Line 1-800-889-9789. Must be 21 or up in Tennessee to bet. So, how would you define the Titans 2023 season? Final thoughts, says Alex. Everything came full circle with Tannehill and Henry. It's time for a new generation. Scott Weaver says, disappointing. Spears is the future. He's legit. For Gord Tyrell. Bipolar, says Jody Newell. Rock bottom, hopefully, says Josh, but thought that they couldn't be a worse left tackle than last year and was wrong. It's true. Regression for Yusuf. Anticlimactic, says Andrew Brown. Well, actually, I think that's quite the opposite. Today was, if they'd have shit the bed and embarrassed themselves on Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill's last game together at Nissan Stadium, then that would have been anticlimactic. I think the way that things ended is quite the opposite of anticlimactic. So I would strongly disagree with that. The whole season, the whole season was underwhelming. And for that to be the climax, I think is quite the opposite of anticlimactic. Frustrating, says John Gonzalez, I know he speaks for a lot of people. MB simply says protection. And that is a big part of this. What I'm going to think of when I think of the 2023 season is just how poorly they did in trying to correct the problems that we all knew that they had. The offensive line was the biggest issue on the roster. The offensive line got worse. Not only did the offensive line get worse year over year, but it got worse throughout the course of the season. Peter Skoronski was a worse player at the end of the year than he was at the start of the year. And I know he had an appendectomy and that it's hard for you to go through a surgical procedure, maybe not be at 100%, not be able to lift weights for a certain period of time, and all that kind of stuff. If you can't keep the weight on and you're playing interior offensive line and you've missed a couple of weeks and you're learning a new position, like all of it's really, really tough. But that the offensive line got worse year over year and got worse throughout the course of the year. It was really, really difficult to imagine. Now, to their credit, they looked like a different unit today. And, there was a false start on Dillard. There was a false start on Radens. Like some of the same stuff was around there, but it was a much different Titans offensive experience when you just simply can't run the ball. Did you see Skoronski today? He was kicking some ass. Yes. Actually, to be honest with you, I did not. I have not, gone back through and watched the TV copy of Skoronski individually, and certainly with year-end review stuff, I'm going to have to do that with all the players who I think are going to be here next year, and even some of the players who aren't, because you're going to evaluate the depth guys and free agents who are out there. So no, I'm not gonna lie to you and act like I've been able to isolate in the 3.5 hours since I've been home Peter Skoronski's performance. But the offensive line as a whole played better, and that includes Dillard, by the way. It was a solid day for the offensive line. I think that Derrick Henry doing a lot of work in there, independent of the offensive line, and the offensive line giving him more help than they've given him all year long. I think that's what it is. Robert Lewis didn't hear much from Skoronski all year. Well, he's a guard. I don't know how much you want to hear from a guard on a regular basis. In fact, if your guard is the most inconspicuous person on the roster, it's probably a good thing. Any of your offensive linemen, really, unless they're Taylor Lewan, who was at the game today, and many of you wanted him to just drop down from the suite that he was sitting in to play left tackle, only for me to remind you that Aaron Brewer weighs more than Taylor Lewan right now, which is funny because there's about a difference of a foot between them. Well, I don't think Brewer's 5'7", but Taylor's Taylor is every bit of 6'6", and the fact that he's closer to 250 pounds right now is pretty crazy to think about. He looks like a totally different human being. Dillard played like a second-round pick today. Well, that's funny because he's a former first-round pick. Skoronski took out 2 Jags defenders on the Derrick Henry touchdown run. Listen, I'm looking forward to seeing how Skoronski finished, because finish does matter here. Guys who've got stuff to build upon. There's a lot of stuff there to kind of suss through as they try and figure out who belongs on the roster and who doesn't belong on the roster moving forward. I think that when you look at the 2023 season, disappointment is the most diplomatic way to put it. I think you can be a little even more drastic than that. It wasn't an outright disaster, though a lot of it felt disastrous and was disastrous in moments. But I think that there's a degree of sloppiness to all of it, and including like everything that's been swirling around them in the news cycle with the Rand and the Vrabel stuff, and just how messy they've been. Like, messy is probably the word that I would use for the 2023 season. It's just a bit of a mess all over the place, and that is not something that I typically associate with the Titans. Now, winning covers up anything, right? I talked about this today on the pregame show. The Houston Texans were one of the worst organizations in professional football over the course of the last 5 years. They got a quarterback, they got a good coach, they win, they go to the playoffs, they won the division. By nature of the Jags losing today, nobody cares about the dysfunction of the Texans the past 5 years, because they've got a shiny new quarterback and he's leading them, on into the playoffs and hosting a home playoff game. So dysfunction is everywhere in the NFL, and the losing teams are the one that show it more. But that they got this kind of messy, I think, consistently throughout the course of the year, on and off the field, it's not something that I typically expect. All right, let's wrap things up here on A to Z Sports Prime Time with a little bit of Sunday Fun Day. What is the best thing that you saw on this NFL Sunday? Let me know in the comment section on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch. We will discuss it at length together. Right after I remind you that the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage makes the primetime show possible. Get your dream address without the stress. Get the intel edge you need to succeed. All can be found at GaryAshton.com. The official real estate agent of the Nashville Predators is the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage at GaryAshton.com. Get your dream address without the stress and that intel edge, like I said, that you need to succeed. Okay, so what's the best thing that you saw on this NFL Sunday? Derrick Henry, not a bad answer. A lot of people are going to go the Derrick Henry direction. Perhaps it was the 69-yard run. Perhaps it was seeing him get into the end zone. Perhaps it was the way that he walked it off the field to cheers and to chants. Jags going to Cancun after knocking us out last year, says Josh. The Eagles somehow further imploding, says Mike Beck. Yeah, Philadelphia. Thank God for A.J. Brown's sake that it doesn't look that serious. It did look pretty serious on the field, but it was a tough go for the Eagles today. They were damn near shut out by the Giants. Marcus Mariota had to go in the game. He immediately threw an interception after going in the game. Was something I did not see in real time. I saw on the internet afterwards. The Eagles fans just losing their minds. Defensive goal line stance, says Todd Jesser. Yeah, it was huge fourth down stops today for the Titans defense, and we talked about that a lot with Mike Vrabel. But I'd be lying to you if I didn't go in the one direction that I think we all have to go with, which is Derrick Henry's send-off. What we think is a send-off, and a message that he wanted to personally deliver to Titans fans before he headed into the locker room to change and then meet with the media.
Titan fans, I just want to say thank you for the greatest 8 years of my life, the ups and the downs. Y'all been there for everything, through the adversity, watching me grow as a person and a player, always supporting me. I love y'all. I love seeing the 22s in the stadium. Hopefully I was an inspiration to all the young kids and everybody in the community. Just thank y'all so much. Man, God is good, and tighten up, baby.
Nothing left to be said. Ladies and gentlemen, Derrick Henry, the King.
It's pretty, it's pretty emotional, right? And I was walking out of work earlier today, and just kind of for context, like the way that the players come in, there's that tunnel that goes underneath Nissan Stadium where everybody parks and stuff like that. They got the players parking lot. There's a ramp. A lot of you guys wait for them as they're coming in and as they're coming out to, maybe get autographs, maybe take a picture just to say hi, to see your favorite players a little closer. And so I'm walking out the players' entrance on my way to get to my car, walking up the stairs from the players' entrance to get out of the bowels of Nissan Stadium and to walk to my car in the parking lot right across from the entrance beneath the stadium. And the thing that I walk up on is a huge crowd of Titans fans sitting at the top of the tunnel in ways that's not normally the case, nor would it normally be allowed because there's a lot of security around there, right? Players' families, players' cars, they're trying to keep people from getting like mobbed at their cars, as fans are coming and going and things like that. And so I'm wondering what the hell this big crowd is doing sitting at the top of this tunnel, and frankly, why security is letting them sit at the top of this tunnel. What the hell is going on? Derrick Henry is out there 2 hours after the game is over, like face to face with people, not across a fence, not like, handing things over the barbed wire fence to him to sign and then him handing it back. He's there with a huge crowd of Titans fans taking pictures, signing people's autographs, saying, how much he appreciates them, giving people a moment to say how much they appreciate Derrick. And it's just, it's not officially goodbye, but damned if it doesn't seem like it, right? And I think he knows. I talked, and Derrick's a real private, close to the vest person, but we talked about this. He's got an entire economy around him, right? There's a lot of people whose day-to-day jobs, whose day-to-day, income, who pay their mortgage because they work in some capacity around Derrick Henry, whether that's from a health and wellness standpoint, recovery, marketing, representation, all these different things. That Derrick Henry provides for many just by being Derrick Henry, an economy unto himself. So there's a lot of people who are preparing for Derrick Henry, who work around Derrick Henry to not be here next year. And, I hate that for him because I know how badly he wants to stay, but he also wants to win. And I don't know how far away they're going to be from legitimately winning something next year in the AFC, where Lamar Jackson still exists, where Patrick Mahomes still exists, where Josh Allen and the Dolphins and all these other teams in the AFC have just been gut punching each other week in and week out and making this a really, really difficult conference to emerge from. I don't know how the Titans are going to stack up in that. We have no idea what their free agency is going to look like. Well, we know that we're damn sure better involve corners and offensive linemen in the draft and free agency and a receiver here and there, and then more offensive linemen on top of that. But for him, I just don't know that anybody's going to make a compelling argument that the Tennessee Titans are the best place for Derrick Henry to win a Super Bowl next year. Travis Ford says we can afford to bring him back on a 2-year deal. You're not giving a 30-year-old running back a 2-year deal. Nobody should. It would be negligence. I don't care who he is. Derrick Henry is a legend. Derrick Henry is one of the most important figures in Nashville sports history. I don't know if he's the most important, but you could make a case. They haven't had many stars as a franchise that are of the scale of Derrick Henry. I think he's bigger than Eddie was. It's so hard to say that he's bigger than McNair was because it's hard to be bigger than somebody who's passed on and who I think, for as great as Steve was in life, I think Steve's, legend is further elevated in death, and that's okay. Like, that's completely fine for people to do it that way, but it's, it's tough to overcome a specter, right? So he has the most pull of any Titan that I've been around or I've covered, obviously. But it's got to be the right kind of deal. And I don't know that the right kind of deal for the Titans is the right kind of deal for Derrick Henry. Where do I see him going? I have no idea. I'm not even going to speculate on that. We'll have all offseason to talk about it. It'll be huge news here locally when and where Derrick signs at whatever point it comes down. But I'm fascinated for him. I want to see him win a Super Bowl. You guys know how emotionally unattached I prefer to be from this kind of stuff because this is your football team. This is the team that I cover as a part of my job, and I've never really but you make relationships. You spend all this time with all of these people, and I've covered all 8 years of Derrick Henry's career here in Tennessee, which is it's wild to think that that's coming to an end. The same way that it was weird when Marcus Mariota was jettisoned out of here, because that was the first quarterback that I covered, and being the first person to talk to Marcus Mariota after their season ended in Kansas City, being the first person to talk to Marcus after he got benched in Denver and stuff like that, like you create, and with Lawan and Wesley Woodyard, all these guys who I still talk to and stuff like that, that you spend so much. I've spent more time around Derrick Henry in the last 8 years than anybody in my family, by a mile. It's not even close. And maybe that speaks to how unhealthy a dynamic I have with my personal life versus my work life. But I think that with Derrick Henry, it's hard not to root for the person. And that's okay. Like, no matter who you are, whether you're a Jags fan, whether you're media, whether you're a Titans fan, like whatever the case may be, like Derrick Henry is just an easy figure to root for. He has done everything. The only public misstep that I remember Derrick Henry making was in his getting ready to come into his second season. And just going to finish his degree at Alabama after his grandmother had passed away. That was one of her dying wishes. He went back to school that summer to finish out his degree. He didn't tell anybody. He didn't call the organization and tell them that he was gonna. And this was a different version of Derrick Henry. Derrick was in a much different place from a communication standpoint, like from a trust standpoint, who he felt comfortable talking to with the Titans. That's a whole different evolution. And just to see the way that he was, just to see how much growth there has been over these 8 years with him, is wild, to his credit. But I think that when you look at everything that Derrick's done, it's impossible to not get emotional about who he is and what he means. Just, if you're happy for things that happen, that good things that happen to the city of Nashville or to the state of Tennessee or to this area of the country or for Titans fans, like it was so cool for me to see you guys today enjoying him and relishing that moment with him and the way that he shared that moment with you. That was really unique. You don't take that stuff for granted, or at least, maybe it's because I'm 30 now. Derrick and I are the same age, that I'm also reflective in ways that I didn't used to be, or maybe a little more, hopefully a little wiser than I used to be, right? And not just kind of moving things on, because it's easy to wish away a bad football season. And I'm so glad that even as bad as things got this year, that I didn't ever get to the point where I was wishing away football games. Imagine not having that moment today, right? Where you just end the season at 5-11. You don't care anymore. There's nothing left to play for. There's always something to play for in the NFL, and there's always something to play for when you've got a legend on your roster, and that's what he is. He's a living legend, truly. Matt Drew says, I know you're not a Titans fan, so who's your actual favorite team? My actual favorite team is the Indiana Hoosiers basketball team. I don't have an NFL team. It makes this job a lot easier to do. If I had an NFL team, I would probably be miserable, or you would probably see some bias, which maybe isn't a bad thing, but it's just didn't grow up that way. Not really my. It was never my favorite sport. I love covering football. Football is the best sport in the world to cover. College basketball is still always going to be my favorite sport. So the Indiana Hoosiers are my favorite team, and that's really the only team that I give a damn about, whether they win or lose. Derrick says, you're a Titans fan, Buck. Get over it. What? Well, here's the deal. It's like Derrick Henry, right? Derrick Henry, we've been asking him his favorite moment as a Titan the last couple of weeks, and he didn't want to answer it until today. He said, ask me after the game. Ask me after the game. And he finally told us today his favorite moment was the 99-yard run, right? That's everybody's favorite moment for Derrick Henry. So it's Derrick Henry's favorite moment as well. On the day that they finally, don't renew my contract or fire me from A to Z Sports, or, that God knows what else would happen. I don't know what else would happen, but you can ask me that question. You can ask me that question, who I'm going to be a fan of moving forward at the end of my situation. And while my contract isn't an expiring situation here at the end of here in a couple of months, none of us know what the future holds. But if I'm around long enough for you to ask me that question, then you can ask me that question on our final primetime show. I don't know when that's going to be. I hope it's not anytime soon because you know how much, despite how much I fight with you all, you guys know that I love you. So, a lot of you asking me about the Vrabel rumors. I'm not doing that anymore tonight. We got the rest of the week to talk about this shit. I'm not. You don't get it all at once. Okay, you got the season end. You got Derrick Henry. We got the rest of the week to talk about this. So, get into the Vrabel stuff. The Vrabel stuff's messy, super messy. It's for all the TMZ kinks that you need to satisfy with the Vrabel stuff. I got plenty for you on that, but we're not going to do it all tonight. So have a great rest of your evening. We will enjoy what remains of our weekend, though there's not much that remains of our weekend, and the radio show starts right at 10 a.m., maybe a little after 10 a.m. on 104.5 The Zone tomorrow. I hope you hang out with us for 3 hours because Black Monday is going to be rowdy. I don't know how much you're going to be involved in Black Monday, but I don't think you're going to be not involved in Black Monday. How about that for a tease? Anyway, I'll talk to you guys tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. on 104.5 The Zone, and I'll leave you with Derrick Henry one last time.
Titan fans, I just want to say thank you for the greatest 8 years of my life, the ups and the downs. Y'all been there for everything through the adversity, watching me grow as a person and a player, always supporting me. I love y'all. I love seeing the 22s in the stadium. Hopefully I was an inspiration to all the young kids and everybody in the community. Just thank y'all so much. Man, God is good, and tighten up, baby.
Nothing left to be said. Ladies and gentlemen, Derrick Henry.